Hello, 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 my friends. There we go. We got some. Well, I'm your host, Nicholas W. Fuller, and I'm joined today by Herman. How you doing, Herman?
I'm doing great, Nicholas. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, my pleasure. I saw you adjusting. Was the music too loud, or was it okay?
When you started talking, I couldn't. You started to garble a little bit, but you're good now. So
This is why for a while I'm like, no music, but I really like the music that I have. I don't know. I'm trying to
that's all
find
good.
like the right, but it's
You came
the
back. I
joy.
was worried you weren't going to come back, so I was making sure that I could hear you and we were all good.
Well, I appreciate that. All right, let me click this go live button here on Instagram. So you should be able to join us on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, you can chat away and join us and have a chat with us. But Herman, can you please go ahead and introduce yourself for the audience?
You bet. My name is Herman Steuernagel. I live in British Columbia, Canada. I have been a published writer for the last 3.5 years now. And yeah, I've been kind of writing my whole life. And I'm a web designer by day and kind of write early mornings and into the evenings. So that's who I am.
That's so, yeah, I was it's interesting. Well, and you also, I don't think you even mentioned that you're also the host of the greatest podcast in the multiverse, right?
I did not mention it, no. But yes, so I do have a small little podcast that I've started up with a humble title, as I like to say, the greatest podcast in the multiverse. Yeah, which Nicholas and I were chatting there before we hit live here, and yeah, it's been running just about a year this summer now. So we're on our 30th episode this week.
Herman, we could almost be the same person. Maybe we are in the multiverse
It could be
because
parallel lives here. We don't know. I have never
right?
seen you in person, so maybe we're chatting through the multiverse. I don't know.
Maybe we don't actually exist in the same place at the same time. No. Because so in addition to we both started a podcast right around the same time because we're both that kind of crazy. We're
Yeah.
also like I'm working on writing. You've got a couple more out in the world than I do, and that's okay. But we're the way that I tell people at a party about my day job is that I make websites. So we've got
Okay.
that in common too.
Yeah,
Right?
very cool. Yeah,
Right.
look at that.
And we got a lovely howdy from JCM Byrne. Hey Joe,
Oh,
how you
hey,
doing?
Joe.
Thanks for joining. And I
Good to
see
see you.
Nan Gregory Michael over on Instagram. How you doing? Thanks for joining. Appreciate it. Can't bring your chat into here. If you join on YouTube, I could. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. But anyway, yeah, really interesting. All the similarities we have, I think.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah, so as we were kind of getting started, Herman, getting to know you a little bit with my little questionnaire, one thing really stuck out. You said that you've always been a writer, but the thing that really convinced you to actually sit down and write your first novel was running a half marathon.
Yes.
How did that happen? Please tell me that story.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like those two things should be related, does it? Yeah. So from a young age, I remember writing little short stories. I mean, like grade 2, grade 3, it's kind of the first stories I remember writing, and it's always something I loved to do. I loved storytelling and I loved reading. I even went to college for an English degree. I mean, there's a couple steps obviously in between there. I was writing kind of short story lengths things up until that point, and then writing kind of fell by the wayside. I didn't think I had really the patience to write a novel. After college, I went into a career in banking, and that's kind of my writing kind of sat on the side for a while. So yeah, after a few years passed, quite a few number of years passed. It was 2019, and I had a few buddies who were running, and I've never been a runner ever, never ever. I was a kid that got picked last in gym class. Like it just wasn't in my vocabulary. I cycle, like I was, I've been riding bike for a good decade, but running was never my thing. But a few buddies were like, "Yeah, do you want to come running with us?" I'm like, "I guess so." Like just to kind of hang out, but I won't make any promises of keeping up with you. Somehow they roped me into doing a half marathon that fall. So I went literally from couch to half marathon in 3 or 4 months.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was tough. I could barely walk the next day, but I did it, and it was great. I felt super accomplished, and but how it relates to my writing is afterwards I had everyone was coming up to me. They were like, "That's awesome! Way to cross something off your bucket list." And I was like, "Well, running a half marathon wasn't really on my bucket list. I just kind of did it."
It was on the F it list. It was like, yeah, like F it, I'll do it with you guys, right? Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I was like, but I got to thinking, like I put all this time and energy into training for this thing that I didn't even really want to do. That I decided, well, why don't I actually put the effort into something I've always actually wanted to do that is on my bucket list, and that's write that novel.
Nice.
So, it took me a while to kind of get going, but, I started to put some ideas down. And over the course of the next year, I created my first novel, which is Lies the Guardians Tell. Hit published on that December 2020. And the rest is history. So, yeah.
So so when did you write in the marathon in 2019?
Yeah. 29. It was October 2019. I started writing November 2019, and then
Pandemic.
obviously there was a pandemic in
Right,
there.
so you got more writing time.
Yeah, well, what led to that actually was I was running my own business. It was a web design business. I kind of got stressed out and had to sell my business, and I'm still doing web design, but I'm not running my own business side of things. So running my own business took all of my free time anyways. So all of a sudden I did have a lot of free time, but it wasn't pandemic related necessarily. I actually worked through 2020 at home doing web because I was doing web design at that point anyway. But I did have my extra free time in the evening and mornings that I would have been using to run my business before that. So it is kind of a similar situation, but it was like, it was right around the pandemic time, but I did have more free time, but for different reasons.
Yeah. That's cool. That's really interesting. The running a half marathon is legitimately on my bucket list. Because it's one of those things where I want to say that I've done it,
For sure.
But,
And it's great. I would like to do another one, but I have not yet. So I need to get my butt in gear.
I've done a few 5Ks, but I don't know. That's like 3.2 miles versus 13.1. That's a big difference,
Yeah, it is. It's so the correlation I found between writing the novel and writing and running is a lot of it more of its mindset than skill. Well, that's maybe not true. There's skill in writing, but a lot of it's mindset in that you have to kind of convince yourself that you can run that distance. Because you can run a lot further, I find, or I can run a lot further than I think I can, because I feel like I'm going to collapse after the first 2 kilometers.
Right.
And then if you can get over that mental hurdle after 5, I feel like it's easier to hit 10.
You can keep going. No, that makes sense.
Yeah. The difficulty from running 1 kilometer to 5 kilometers, I find, is a lot harder than the difference between 5 and 10, at least.
No, that's all right.
Yeah.
One day. Maybe we'll do it together, Herman. Maybe we'll go run a half marathon together someday.
Fantastic. I'd love it.
That'd be fun. We'll put on T-shirts. Mine for person behind the pages, yours for greatest podcast in the multiverse, and people will be like, "What is that?" And we'll be like, "I don't know. Come with us." Like,
it'll be fun. The QR codes on the back of the shirt so people can plug into the podcast while they're running. Yeah.
All right. Love it. We'll have to make it happen someday.
Nice. Cool. We'll have to meet in the middle. I think we're on the other side of the continent.
Yeah, the continent. Yeah, that's true. We'll be running a half marathon in Kansas.
Right.
All right. So you put out the first book in late 2020.
Yeah.
And now you've got 9 books out already?
9 books out. Yeah. The my upcoming book will be my 10th. So it was
damn.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Damn. Well, yeah, like 3-ish books a year-ish.
Yeah. It was they kind of just kept coming after that. So my first novel, like I said, it's more of a YA dystopia novel. It's kind of a science fantasy book. I pumped out the 2 sequels right away, pretty much. So my second book came out in April, and the third one came out in October. So within a year, I had 3 books right away.
Amazing.
Yeah, and then I kind of wrote a short prequel series. After that, those books were quite a bit shorter, but I pumped those out pretty quick too. And then I had to take a break from that universe, and that's when my Fractured Orbit series kind of started to come about. So,
but that one's also kind of dystopian, is that right?
Yeah, it's a kind of a space dystopian. So I guess the origin story for that series is I did write a short story, which I can't remember if I included on that list of published works, for an anthology called The Dystopian Guide to the Galaxy. And what it was supposed to be was dystopian stories set in space. So I wrote my short story in that book, which you can get on my website for free. It's called Infinity. And it really kind of has a silo feel to it. They're living on a space station. They think they're the remnants of humanity and that sort of thing. Published that, and I thought, oh well, there's more to this story here. Why don't I create an entire universe? Then
Mm-hmm.
why don't I create an entire series off of this short story? So that's what I did. It was supposed to be a trilogy. I wrote Eclipse, and then Chimera and Resurgence were supposed to be one book, but it ended up being 900 pages. So I split it into two. And there's 2 more books coming in that series yet. So it ended up being a 5-book series inspired by a short story. But it's kind of got, I compare it usually to Red Rising because it's kind of, that dystopia vibe set in space.
Dang, dude. Wow. Just yeah, crank. Like, so
Yeah.
what is your process like? How are you able, I mean, you said you're writing kind of in the morning, I guess before work. So like what, you just roll out of bed and just hit that keyboard like right on the floor next to the bed and just like
just about, I don't have much of a life outside of my writing, which is, that's going to change a little bit here this summer. I need to get out more. Last summer I kind of was hitting pretty hard on these last 2 books, but yeah, I wake up at 5 a.m. Get out of bed, put in a couple hours before work, and then weekends I'm spending a good another 5-6 hours on the Saturday Sunday to get some more words out. So
wow.
yeah, it's a grind, but I enjoy it and I like the process of it. So
Yeah, how many words are you pumping out on a weekend day?
it really depends, but it's not as many as you'd think. It's 2,000 to 4,000. Like 4,000 is a really good day for me. That's like
solid. That's good.
That's a full,
That's
if
good.
I spend a full 8-hour day, I'm getting maybe 4,000 words.
That's double Stephen King's number. You know what I mean? So you're
Yeah.
doing just fine, right?
Yeah, for sure. On a work day, like 1,000 to 2,000 is probably doable. But again,
That's what's
it'll
up.
depend on the day and where I am in the process too.
That's really cool. So what you said you kind of enjoy the process. What are kind of your favorite parts about writing, and what are the parts that 3 parts, okay? So number 1, favorite thing in writing. Number 2, most challenging pull your hair out thing of writing, except, you already had those.
Yes.
And then but number 3, what are you like in the writing craft? What are you working on right now? What are you kind of like, man, this is sort of I feel like a weakness that I'm trying to improve, or something, even it could be a strength that you think you can make it even better. What's something that you're working on?
Okay. So favorite part of the process is being done. I love having the book finished. I mean, it's just such a great feeling.
Yeah.
It's that whole marathon thing though. Like I don't like running. I mean, I don't like training to do the marathon really, but I love having done it. It's such a cool feeling to have completed that run. I mean, I do enjoy writing. It's not a fair comparison. I do enjoy the writing process, but having this finished book that people are reading and I can share that other people are picking up is just incredible to me. That it's just an amazing feeling. The process itself, I do enjoy the drafting process of it and the world building. I enjoy different things coming to light throughout the creative process. And yeah, I would say the world building. The part that I find the most difficult, it's a little harder. I struggle with. I'm gonna say I struggle with like character voice, trying to make sure that my characters are all different. I think I get there eventually, but it doesn't come out in the first draft. It's something I have to go back and read through and really picture who these people are. And it takes me sometimes the full book to get to know who a person is. And then when I go back and do my read through, I'm like, well, this person wouldn't say anything like this, so I have to rework that. So it is difficult. Yeah. So it's the difficult part of the process. It's not something that I think that I'm blind to when I read it. Like it's something that I kind of get there, but it's
Yeah.
definitely not something that comes naturally. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then your
And
third part of the question
yeah,
was,
like what you're working on, what you're kind of actively trying to improve on in your writing right now. Is it that voice? Kind of trying to find that voice a little sooner?
I think that's partially for sure. Outlining is definitely a struggle for me.
Mm.
That's something like planning novels. This book, my upcoming book, The Bartender Between Worlds, was actually supposed to be a novella. It ended up being a full novel. It ended up being double the word count. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And the same thing happened with Chimera and Resurgence. Like I've got my posters back here. That was supposed to be a 400 word novel and ended up being 900 page pair of novels. So I really need to work on my and it's fine that they're that length. I would just like to really have a sense up front of where this story is going to go and how long it's going to take to get there.
Yeah.
So really just planning a little better, I think.
Have you seen this new like SFF writer's journal from MJ Kuhn that she just put out the other day?
I have seen it. Yeah. Is it is there planning as a part of it? I haven't looked closely at it.
Definitely. She's like an obsessive planner. She outlines with Excel with spreadsheets. Like it's next level.
Okay.
And I don't think that she's walking you through all that, I assume. Not quite that level in the book, but yeah, she's a planner. That might be something to look into.
Yeah, I'd have to take a look at that for sure. I mean, I really enjoy SFF Addicts podcast as well. So
I mean, listen, I like what I'm doing. I really like what you're doing, but I think they're the top tier in it right now,
totally,
you know?
totally agree. Totally agree.
Yeah.
I mean, they definitely have a great model that they've
Right?
embraced, and it's working really well for them.
I remember too, like, I don't how long have you been a fan of SFF Addicts? For a while?
It's been just over a year, like 2
Okay.
years probably. Yeah.
Oh, so 2 years. So you might have been around before MJ became co-host, yeah?
It was like right. I think I started listening right when she started to become co-host.
So I was listening a bit before MJ became co-host, and then like Adrian was like, "I'm gonna bring on this co-host. We're gonna do this other format." And I was like, "Why are you changing things? I like what you do." But like, I was so wrong. He was right. It was, it's made the show even better. It's really good.
That's cool.
Yep. So yeah, man, like 9 books. Can you run me through again the titles of all the books and how many are in each series, please?
Yeah, sure. So I've got right now 4 series. I'll pick up my books here. So this is the first book in my first series, Lives the Guardians Tell. So this is my Lives of the Guardian series. This is my print cover. The ebook cover does look different than that.
Okay.
It's a YA dystopian book. Basically the short version of the pitch is future society, AI has taken over. There's the sphere where everyone lives in, and the protagonist, her name is Sierra, discovers that she has a magical ability that can affect technology, as well as another young man in the world called, I forget his name, it's been a while, Will, I believe is his name, who also has a separate ability. So it's a bit of magic within a technological dystopia. That's really what it is.
Nice.
They realize that they've been lied to, and they end up leaving the sphere and setting out on an adventure. So there's a little bit of an epic fantasy tone to it, even though it's a YA science fiction dystopia. I'm going to work on it a little bit because the series isn't finished. So it's going to get a little bit of a revamp in the future when I finish the fourth and final book for it.
Nice.
The second series after that is the Guardian Program. This is kind of a prequel series. The Guardian Program is the first book in the Ter Hoffman Chronicles. That's a 3-book series. Again, it's AI apocalyptic. This is what happened to cause the Lives of the Guardian series to happen. So it's more of a thriller. It's a kind of different tone genre. That was kind of a rookie author mistake. I kind of pivoted genres in the same universe, but I think it's okay. It works out.
Yeah.
Because of the time scale. People like both, but there's definitely going to be audiences that would prefer one or the other. So this is near future, the Guardian Program. It's really artificial intelligence goes awry. I wrote this before ChatGPT or anything like that. So, I mean, it was, and I actually found myself having to scale up some of the because when I was researching AI, I'm like, oh, some of this stuff could happen now, but I don't want this to be a current day thing. I want it to be, 20, 30 years in the future. So I think some of the things that happen in there are a little further in the future than what might actually happen. Maybe not, the AI turning on us and that sort of thing, but
Fingers crossed.
yeah, fingers crossed.
Right.
But that's a fast-paced read. All 3 books, I actually really enjoy those ones. But again, sci-fi thriller. And then Eclipse. Do I have Eclipse here? Yeah, I do. This is my most recent series, Eclipse: The Fractured Orbit. As I mentioned before, dystopia in space. There's 2 point of views in this one. Django, who's on the space station Eclipse. Again, they think that they're the remnant of humanity, that they've been orbiting the Earth for 200 years, waiting for it to become habitable again. And the second point of view is Mika. Mika is a space pirate. She lives outside the station. The people live in... there are different colonies on the moon, different colonies on other planets, but they're kind of separated from the people in the station. They don't realize how really separated they are. And so she's a former space pirate. She gets kind of into trouble when she makes a deal with a former person that she knew who's now a commander. And there's really a lot more politics involved and a little bit more maneuvering, but they end up kind of getting in the mix of a civil war kind of throughout the series. Yeah. So those are the 3 series. So each of those series have 3 in them right now. And so Eclipse Chimera, you can see the posters for Chimera. Yeah. Behind me if I lean the right way.
They're gorgeous. So all of these are available on Amazon?
All of them are available on Amazon. They're so my Lies of the Guardian series is in KU. Fractured Orbit's in KU. The Terry Hoffman Chronicles is wide. So it's a little separate there, but you can get that one anywhere. And again, paperbacks and hardcovers you can get anywhere as well for all of them.
So I want to get into talking about podcasts, but before we do that, there's just kind of all of these books, all of these ones, we'll talk about the other book a little bit later, but all of those ones are all dystopia. What drew you at the time to writing so much like dystopia? Was it just like it felt natural because the world was falling apart?
Yeah, it's funny. Well, it was actually the worst time to start writing dystopia was in 2019 because
that's fair.
The world fell apart in 2020 and nobody wanted to read a dystopia in 2020 because they were living it.
Right.
But when I kind of went with when I wrote the first book, I kind of just wrote the first idea that kind of came to my head. I had this vision of what would happen if someone was living in this technological society and they had this ability where tech started to fail around them. So that was kind of the basis of where the Lives of the Guardian started. And I've always been a fan of dystopia. Those are the stories that have drawn me. But I grew up kind of in the 90s where it was films like Demolition Man and Waterworld and like that realm of dystopia. It was before the Hunger Games. But then, I enjoyed the Hunger Games when it came out too. In The Road, those sorts of stories, I've always enjoyed them. So that's kind of what I gravitated to writing, and that was really the basis behind it. If I was going to write a story, it was going to be dystopia. And then it just kind of evolved. I wanted to write Eclipse as a space-based story. There's a bit of dystopia in it as well. Part of that was because of the anthology that Infinity was in, that it kind of sprang from. But really at the core of this society is a dystopia as well. But it's not your typical dystopia like some of the like the Hunger Games and that sort of thing. There's dystopian elements in it.
Cool, man. Yeah. Of course. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, you've we'll get into this a little bit more later, but it sounds like you kind of had a little bit of your fill of dystopia for a little bit and needed a little bit of a palate cleanser, and that's the latest book. But before we get into that, so a year ago ish, you decided to do this crazy thing and start a podcast, much like I did. Well, except that mine's a YouTube show, but still. So why? What was sort of your impetus for wanting to do it? And also, as someone that's done it all as well, how much sort of planning and forethought and research did you give into it before you took the plunge? Because for me, it was very much like, man, this will be fun, and like,
Yeah.
not too much beyond that,
Yeah, that's funny because yeah, it was a lot the same. I'll talk about the impetus for it first, though. I was listening to a few podcasts at the time. It was around the time I was marketing Eclipse, so I was really looking at what podcasts were out there. And there were a
Mm-hmm.
couple at the time. Read It with Whiskey was one, and the other one was Dan Coolbuzz, Sci-Fi and Fantasy Fanatics. Those were kind of
Another
the
good
two,
one. Yeah.
and SFF Addicts was kind of the other one.
Right.
Um, I couldn't find. I know there are others out there, but I couldn't find a lot of them. And right around that summertime, Read It with Whiskey decided that Laura Jundinen, she decided she wasn't going to do it anymore. And I really thought, that's too bad because this is a great space for indie authors to be able to
Mm-hmm.
come and talk about themselves. These authors you wouldn't normally hear about otherwise. And I came home that day. I'm like, I'm thinking about starting a podcast, interviewing other authors. Do you think this is a bad idea? Like, I've got so much else on the go right now. She's like, no, I think you should do it. And I was like, okay, well, sure. And I just kind of jumped into it, the same as you. Like you said, I really I looked into kind of how to upload a podcast, what equipment I needed, although that sort of thing. I didn't do a ton of research into it. I kind of jumped in head first. I decided to record 7 or 8 episodes before I actually started releasing them.
Smart.
Just so I wasn't scrambling each week because I'm like, is anyone gonna want to talk to me? I'm a nobody. Like people don't know who I am. Like it's not
Right.
like I'm a well-known author at this point. But yeah, I sent out a bunch of requests. Almost everyone said yes, which was surprising. So yeah, here we are, and I've just been amazed at kind of the people I've been able to talk to and some of the authors I've discovered through this process, and it's really helped me to just be more aware of the indie space.
Man, nailing it in terms of like the kind of the experience, but also the advantages too. Like where I remember, talking, like reaching out to my first like few guests, and like like Travis Baldry was one of the first people I ever talked to, and I was
Awesome.
like, you want to talk to me? This is great,
Yeah, I heard that interview too. That was pretty cool. Yeah.
No, thank you. Yeah, that was, yeah, he's a blast. I don't know if you've had him on your show, but he's a good.
I haven't. I've tried it, to be honest. I've been trying to get him on, but I know he's a busy guy.
I think he's gotten busier and busier. You know what I mean? Like, I
Oh,
think at that
absolutely.
time he was still kind of. I feel like there was a while where he was definitely just saying yes to everything, and
Yeah.
he's probably had to tone that back a little bit.
Yeah. At some point. Yeah. You
Right.
definitely have to.
But yeah, I've been really surprised too how infrequently I get either a no response or a no, I can't make it. And then usually if I do get a no, it's very like, oh, it's like just I would, but scheduling or whatever.
Mhm.
So but you've been podcast and YouTube since the very beginning, right?
Yeah, I made the decision to do both. It was one extra upload for me. It really and then
Fair.
actually it was and then when I moved my podcast host to Spotify, they started doing video as well. So I
Hmm.
didn't even have to
Hmm.
process a second file. I could upload the same file to YouTube and Spotify distributes it out. So it's just 2 uploads. So it's really the only extra step that I do.
That's interesting. Maybe I have to jump on. I'm not a huge fan of Spotify, but maybe I have to jump on that train. I mean, they are the big player. They're like the 800. They're the Amazon of podcasts.
I know, and their hosting is free, and I mean I realize they have ulterior motives for that, but for me, I'm a small podcast. I'm not making any money with it, so it was just something that like, well, I'll upload it if they're going to distribute it to everyone else, then I'm happy to do it. So
Yeah.
rather than because I think the other platform I was using was like 20 or 30 bucks a month if I didn't want ads included
Mm-hmm.
on the show.
Hmm.
So.
I think like I have another podcast that I recorded a long time ago. It's called "My Dad Built Spaceships" because my dad was an
Okay.
engineer, and it was just us talking about his work. Um,
Cool.
I think my hosting for that is a little bit cheaper, but it's like it is kind of a pain to get it sort of set up initially, and then So that's yeah. Maybe I gotta look into the Spotify because I actually had a fan reach out to me and be like, "When is your show going to be available as a podcast?" And I was like, "Well, I've been dragging my feet on it." So, but it was really nice that they asked. But
Yeah. Yeah, I mean there's only so much that a person at some point your bandwidth stops, right? And you're just like, I don't know if I want to do one extra thing.
yeah,
Um, and then approach it when you feel like you're ready to to do that one extra thing. But I totally get it. I totally get it's I made the decision at the beginning to do YouTube. I don't know if there was much thought behind the decision other than it was a different platform and I just wanted
yeah.
it to be accessible. So but I get about, I'd say listens, I get 50-50 YouTube and podcast.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I feel like if you're already so many of the uh, remote recording options include video, and if you're going to have that anyway, like it is usually just like one extra button to go upload it to YouTube. It's kind of a why not, you know?
Right.
But yeah, I gotta I don't know. Anyway, um, well, I think it's cool that you're doing it, and I'm glad that you're doing
Thank
it. I'm
you.
glad that there are more people kind of doing this sort of thing because I do think it's a
Yeah.
nice way to get out there. But
Yeah.
I know that you understand, but I'm not sure that other people understand that there is like there's a fair bit of work involved, and nobody's making money on doing these author interview
For
shows. You
sure.
know?
For sure. And a few other people have started up recently, which I really appreciate.
Hmm.
And I mean, within the last year or so. And there's definitely something to go like, because you did the live recording. So you don't have the editing side of things. Cause I edit all my episodes and that is what's the time consuming part of it. So
That's why I
I was
switched to
thinking,
live because I was
yeah,
doing it with the editing like all of last year, and
right.
I mean, to be perfectly frank, I hated it. I really just don't like the editing part, you know?
Hmm.
I love
I,
doing the conversations and I love
yeah,
talking with people. And I
yeah.
actually like now that I've gone live and I can integrate I can say hi to Bo. You
Hello.
know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I like that. Whereas, yeah, when it was just like the recorded and then trying to edit it and then
Mhm.
thinking about like how can I package this in the best way for YouTube and make it like it's just like
Agreed. Yeah, I do. I don't mind I actually don't mind the editing process, but it takes so long that
yeah,
have felt, I'm like I could be using this time to write. That's um, that's the drawback for me
right,
is that it takes at least an evening for me to work through and edit of an episode. Like it takes one
right,
day off the table for me for anything else.
right.
Um, so
No,
so it's I think it's smart to do the live show. To be honest, like I think and then if you can take that recording and upload it to
to
the podcast
podcast.
later.
Yeah, that's where I want to get to. It's just well, and like not to get really in the weeds, but now like one of my thoughts about it is like, okay, I've been doing. I have these. I did like once a week episodes last year, and then for a while when I went live, I was like, I'm just gonna crank them out. I'm gonna do a bunch just because I can and I want to,
Yeah,
which was kind of fun. But now I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go back to doing once a week because that's more sustainable.
for
Um,
sure.
But what like so if I go and I put it on podcast, do I put the entire backlog that I have all on podcast all at once and be like, here's, a bunch of episodes?
I wouldn't do that because you get your first, much like YouTube, you get your most of your visibility in the first week. That's what I find at least. So I would probably just start releasing once a week, and or maybe you could upload your old ones on one day and upload your new ones on a second day. So if you're still doing one a week, because otherwise you're never going to stop uploading.
Right, right.
So like Tuesdays do an old episode and then Thursdays do a new episode or whatever that looks like. But
That's
I
smart.
think you'd be doing yourself a disservice of uploading more than the first 10
Yeah,
because your visibility really comes per episode on that first week of launch.
yeah.
And I'm not
Okay.
sure if that's because of how Spotify promotes it, or you get the repeat listeners coming back each week. It's probably part of that too. I don't know if anyone will sit. I don't know how many episodes you have now, like 40, 50 or so.
I
Um,
think I'm over 50, but I'm not exactly
okay.
sure like what yeah, I have to go look because part
Yeah.
of it is the older format that's recorded, and then part of it's can I tell you too, I'm still sitting on two recordings that I need to go edit and put out, and like I feel
Mhm.
bad because it's been a little while, but I'm hoping to get those ones out sooner than later. But
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I think that it'd be tough for people to listen to 50 episodes in one solid chunk. So
Right.
I think you'd probably be better off staggering them out. I mean, so you've got a year's worth of episodes really that
Yeah.
you can stagger out.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the other thing too, like generally, especially when I was recording them, I was shooting for like an hour long episode. Although a couple I tried like putting on YouTube a shorter format, but that didn't like make a difference. But there's been a couple lives where like we just been vibing, and I've like let the live go for like 2 hours.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, you
That's
think
fine.
the inconsistent length for podcast isn't a problem?
My episodes range from half an hour to an hour and a half. I think if Joe's still kicking around, I think our episode was the longest one I've had, and that was an hour and a half.
Nice.
So I
Nice.
haven't noticed a difference between length, at least. There's there's a
Okay.
definite difference between guests. Like some guests bring in more of their own
Yeah.
people to listen to, but between length, I haven't noticed anyone. No one
Like
said
the day
anything anyway.
the day we ever get to sit and talk with Brando Sando, that's the day that we'll actually get a lot, like 1,000+ views, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Josh says you can't stop the vibes when they happen, though.
No,
It's so
you
true.
can't.
It's
No,
so
you can't.
true.
You've got to roll with it. So
Thanks for being here, buddy. Appreciate it. So you wrote these 9 books, and then you decided you're going to do the podcasting too. How are you balancing the two? You know, it sounds like you're sort of
haphazardly.
yeah, right. But
Yeah.
you kind of give yourself like an evening to do the editing, and then if you're not done at the end of the evening, you're like, okay, it's good. This is going to have to be good enough. Is that what you're sort of doing?
Yes and no. I mean, it takes me about an evening. I've kind of refined my process over the course of the last years, as you do. So it's rare that an episode will take me more than an evening. But yeah, at a certain point, it's just got to get up. So I've got to do it. Usually it's, Sunday evening is kind of when I'm working on it, because it comes out Tuesday, to give myself a little bit of time to get all the graphics and stuff ready as well. So yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's been a time where, other than if I have like a technical issue, that it's taken me longer than that evening to do at this point.
Nice.
So,
Nice.
yeah. And I wish I could say I had it more scheduled. Like it is usually Sunday or sometimes Monday night that I'm doing it, but it kind of has to happen at that time. So it just does.
Yeah. 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 What do you have like a specific day of the week that you do your interviews, or does it vary?
It varies. I try to work around the guests schedule a lot, because like my day job is really flexible. I aim for either a Thursday or a weekend interview, but if that doesn't work, I tell my guests, let me know a day that does work. So those are kind of the days I aim for. Thursday, Friday is tough. Monday is tough, but weekends are usually easiest. That's when I do the bulk of my interviews.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
I'm
talking to myself here.
I hit the back button on my mouse. Whoops. Can you believe? Anyway. Yeah, flexibility. So it varies. Okay. All right. Yeah. I'd love to kind of be more like scheduled with like, okay, guest on this day and like, but yeah, I think you need it, like, especially to talk to the people that you want to talk to, you need to have a little bit of flexibility, right?
Exactly. Especially if I'm reaching out to a bigger author who I know has more interviews and more stuff going on, if you'll talk to me, I'll talk to you whenever you want. Like here are my open days. Like I've got a Calendly account that I send a link to that has my preferred slots, and I just tell my guests, if there's something that doesn't, if nothing here works for you, just let me know, because I'll make something work. I can duck out of work for an hour. It's not a big deal. I work at this desk, so it's
right.
all good. Yeah.
Right. That's cool. But again, just to kind of talk about like the balance between the two, I suspect that your books are probably cash flow positive for you at this point. Yeah.
No, they're not.
No. Really? Are you spending a lot on covers?
Yes and no. My Fractured Orbit covers are quite pricey. This one from Mibble, the Bartender Between Worlds, which we haven't talked about yet.
Well, we will.
I got this done through Mibble Art. It's about $500. So Yeah, they're not making money at this point. Like if I'm perfectly honest, but
Yeah.
at least not like they're not paying for themselves, I should say, which is fine. I mean, I'm doing it because I love to do it. Um,
No, I
and
appreciate that you share that, because I think it's just something that I want to bring a little bit of light to like the broader audience, the audience that's not like super plugged in with the indie community that knows that. But
yeah,
yeah, like a lot of us are doing this at a loss, not only like our
yeah,
time or effort or blood, sweat, and tears, but like whatever software you use, I can almost guarantee that you're paying a monthly fee for the software you use for your podcast.
yeah,
um
yeah. Every
I know
time,
I
yeah,
am, right?
yeah,
um and then the work we're doing for books with the covers, maybe an editor, all that sort of thing, it all
mhm.
is an expense. And
It is.
hopefully
Yeah,
one
yeah.
day.
If this wasn't something I loved doing, I wouldn't do it. Right? The
Yeah,
and the podcast would go before the books. But like to be perfectly honest, like I mean, the
sure.
podcast is a way for me to meet other authors and get involved in the community, and it's my chance to take some time away to do that. And because I mean, as a writer, we're behind our desk all the time, right? So to be
Yeah,
able to do this and chat with someone else's who is across the continent away from me that I
yeah,
wouldn't have ever gotten the opportunity to do otherwise. I love doing that,
yeah,
having that experience. But yeah, the books aren't cheap, and they're not. It's a lot of time and it's a lot of money. Um, but I at this point I can't stop doing it because I love doing it, and I'm hoping one day they'll pay for themselves. But at this
yeah,
point,
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, they're not quite there yet.
yeah. But the more you put out, the better it gets. SFF
Yeah,
Insiders in the house. It's all a hustle just to get noticed. Yep, it's true.
yeah,
It's true.
absolutely.
Appreciate the work that you do to help authors get noticed, man.
Yeah, yeah.
So, all right. I want to throw in one funny little thing before we get into the Bartender of the Worlds. You won a Mario Kart tournament when you were in high school. This is amazing. This is amazing. Tell me about, like, how did the Mario Kart tournament even happen?
Yeah, that's funny. It was funny because this came about because you asked if I've won
Yes,
anything, and somehow for some reason that came to mind.
I
Um,
love it. I
yeah,
love it.
I mean it was a high school fun day, really is what it was, and the Mario tournament was set up, and this was I mean when I was in high school it was like super it was Super NES Mario Kart. We're like old school Mario. And that is just I just loved playing Mario Kart. I played a lot of it. So I mean, at this point, I was in grade 9 or 10, and I was playing
Mhm.
against grade 12 students as well. So
Dropping
I don't.
them.
That was a long time ago, so I don't remember
Yeah.
specifics of it
Yeah.
to
Sure.
be
Sure.
honest. But I still love Mario Kart.
Still. Yeah.
I still rock it. I'm not as good as I used to be at it, but yeah, I walked away with
Mario
the tournament,
Kart.
and there was a prize to it too. I don't remember what the prize was, but it was actually not bad from what I
That's
remember.
what's up. That's
Yeah,
so fun.
yeah.
Mario Kart is the game I break out when I need to humble my son.
I love it. Love it.
Right? When he's getting cocky about his video game, I'm like, all right, let's play some Mario Kart. Like, no, like, oh
Yeah,
yeah. You won't
yeah.
beat me in that race, son.
That's great.
Mm-mm.
That's great.
Right?
Do you do any of like the online races or anything, or
I
like?
haven't. No,
Okay, I
I
haven't
mean, I
either,
like.
to be honest, so
I'll play. I've been playing a lot of this other game online called Helldivers 2, which is big fun. So
okay.
like, I'm no stranger to like online gaming, but just not the
Yeah.
Mario Kart specifically.
Okay.
Might be
Yeah, I
fun.
don't do much for online gaming too. I was just curious.
Yeah, yeah, interesting stuff. All right, so Bartender Between Worlds. I love the way you
Yeah.
pitch this as like Legends and Latte meets Loki. I need
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's funny because I've been struggling. So this is the book again for those that have not seen the cover. That
Ooh,
I was so happy with this cover. Mivlar
yeah.
did such a great job. So yeah, cozy fantasy. That's the Legends and Lattes part is really we've got a witch hunter who discovers one day that she has magic, and
Uh-oh.
yeah, but her magic can only affect drinks. So, but she realizes this. So the prologue starts out. They're kind of in a pub after they've brought in this witch, and The bartender is pouring a glass of wine, and he realizes the wine's gone bad. And Emma is the character's name. She's like, is the wine bad though? And she's like, something's going on here. Bring that wine to me. And the bartender's like, you really don't want this. Like, you just saved our village from, this witch. I'm not serving this to you. And she's like, no, just bring it over. If it's bad, it's bad. That's fine. And so he pours another glass, and she feels this something happening in her, and the wine turns good. And she's like, shit, that felt a lot like magic. So she's like, I've got two choices. I can take off, or I can turn myself in, because magic in this kingdom is illegal. So she decides she's going to take off, and she's like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to go to the furthest remote village in the kingdom, and I'll become a bartender. So that the kind of Legends and Lattes vibe is just really a low stakes fantasy. It's got, this character who was this, one of the best witch hunters in the kingdom, decides she's going to become a bartender. It's a little bit different. It turns from the Legends and Lattes a little bit, because it's not just about her serving drinks in a bar. That story will kind of come later, but this is more, it's a low stakes adventure story where we meet the Loki vibe of it, where she meets a sorcerer who's really a scientist, but she's convinced he's a sorcerer, who got stuck in her world through a device that he's made that allowed him to travel through the multiverse. So it turns out that her magic can affect both drinks and the crystals that are in that powers his device to help him return home. Yeah. So they go on this adventure traveling the multiverse, and there's a set of characters, her, the professor, and a fairy, who have all been kind of cast out of their world and are trying to find where they belong.
Wow. All right. So we got some found family vibes between all the three of them.
Yeah.
That's exciting. Yeah. This is a really good pitch, Herman. This is fun.
Thank you very much. It's, the Legends and Lattes meet Loki, that just came to me as I was filling out that form, because I've been talking about a couple other books that I related to. If you know the A Baker's Guide to Defensive Magic,
I've heard of it.
T. Kingfisher. The magic system in that was really an inspiration for this story, because in that story the protagonist can only affect baked goods with her magic. In my story, it's alcoholic drinks, and it's just that kind of fun, adventurous. The same kind of fun adventure as that story is in some ways. I've also invoked the 90s show Sliders. If you watched or remember that show, if you've never seen Sliders,
what? Oh, yes.
Where they're traveling, through the multiverse. So there's definitely. I grew up on that show. That's one of the sci-fi shows that I loved. So there's some inspiration there too.
That's good fun. Bo says magic drinks. What? This sounds awesome, but also could lead to very bad things if exploited. I think
it could. That might be. There might be some tension there. That's explored.
Joshua asked, and no, Joshua, you didn't miss this. Herman, was the process for writing The Bartender Between Worlds any different from your other works? Yeah. And is it your first cozy fantasy? I think yes, it's definitely your first cozy fantasy.
Yeah. So this cozy fantasy is actually. It's the second one that I've worked on, but it's the first one that I'm publishing. Okay. This was meant to be a reader magnet for another book that I am currently working on. So the process was very different for this book in a number of ways. So it was going to be a novella. It was going to be a 25,000 word novella. I wrote it out in first person, realized it didn't work, rewrote everything in third person and made it 3 times as long, because really when I approached it, and I was talking about that character voice earlier that I struggle with, I realized that the other two main characters in the story, even though they're not point of view characters, their stories kind of needed to really play a part to make this a true found family story, which is really important with in the cozy fantasy genre. So I wrote the first draft in about 3 to 4 weeks. I then wrote my second draft in another 5 to 6 weeks, and I've been editing kind of for another 2 to 3 months on it. So it definitely was a different process. The world wasn't as built in my head while I was writing it, strangely enough. A lot of it kind of came through the process. There's a lot more exploration of the story as I went. And there was a lot of work, there's a lot of work for me to try to tame um, the violence and action and high stakes that I'm used to having to include, because it wasn't that story. It was, okay, it can't be her trying to save the world. Maybe she wants to, maybe because that's her instinct, but it needs to be pulled back because this is about her discovering herself. It's not about saving the world.
That's cool. Did you find that challenge just frustrating or rewarding at the same time?
It was definitely rewarding too, right?
Yeah.
Because by the end, I just did finish my last read through of the story before sending it to my editor.
Nice.
Getting to know the character now that I know the characters, who they are, and going through and reading the story, it's it's nice to have these characters that have gone on this journey with me and really focused on, okay, this is what needs to come out of this story, not just everything, not explosions everywhere.
Yeah. Very cool. So one thing that I love about India is all these options we have for like how we're going to present our work, and I believe that we can say some things about how you're bringing this work into the world. Can we?
Yeah, we can.
Go.
What would you
Please
like to know? Yeah, so I've got a couple of stages of release here. So at the end of this month, May, I've got a Kickstarter running.
Woo woo.
Yeah, woo-hoo. So that'll come out. That'll be launched on May 25th. That's going to be for a hardcover special edition as well as a deluxe edition of the ebook and paperback. I've got some pretty cool illustrations that my wife has done for me. She's an artist.
Nice. Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I've done some sneak peeks on my Instagram and that of those, but I'll be doing more as we lead into the campaign. So it's got illustrations, some extra drink recipes, and the hardcover has a special limited edition version of the cover. So I'm really excited for that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Could I ask what the price point's going to be on this hardcover, the limited edition hardcover?
You can. It might change though. So it's probably.
Can we use like a ballpark? Are we talking like a $50 book, $100 book?
US dollars will probably be about 50. I'm in Canadian.
Okay.
I think if I remember right, it was about 80 Canadian, which will be about in the 50
okay.
range for
okay.
US.
Cool. Nice. That's a bunch of unique art with a unique one. I think that's a good value there.
Yeah, nice. I want to do something special for it. It's my, so this is my 10th release. So I wanted to kind of make sure that I did something a little bit special for it. And I know you'd asked me before the show, why do the special edition before before the book is even out? I don't have a great answer for that question, but I did want to do something special with this book because there's a lot of cool things I thought I could do with a cozy fantasy in a with drinks in a tavern setting. And So the official launch date of the standard edition is July 23rd. So that's already up for pre-order on Amazon and Kobo and Barnes & Noble, all the places it's going live.
Nice.
And I believe the paperback is up for pre-order as well. The hardcover hasn't quite hit the systems yet.
I think special edition sounds awesome. Josh is on board. He said he agrees. Sounds so good. Cool, that sounds pretty fun. You got drink recipes in it too?
You bet. Yeah. There'll be drink recipes in the standard edition, but there'll be extra drink recipes in the special edition.
That's really cool. Also, Isaac Hill, shout out in the Instagram. He says, "Go Canada." So
awesome. Yeah.
Woo. Right.
Always great to find the other Canadian authors. There's a bunch of us.
Right. Yeah. There are dozens of us. So that's funny. Very cool, man. Yeah, I'm excited for that release. I think that's going to be a really fun read. Is that planned to be because this was planned to initially be a lead magnet. So clearly, and you're working on another one that's going to be a sequel, I assume.
Yeah, they're both standalones, but it'll be in the same universe. Okay. So this is kind of the backstory of one of the secondary characters in that other novel.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. That's fun. I do like. I mean, a series is great, of course, but a nice standalone is really good too.
Yeah, I wanted this to be. I mean, I wanted it to be contained stories. I've done all my other books have been series. I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to do. Um, so the book that this is the prequel to is called The Greatest Pub in the Multiverse. That's the title of
Ah,
that book.
nice.
So that one's already partially written, but this is the backstory kind of one of the characters of that story. So this is like the series is called The Greatest in the Multiverse series.
Nice. Nice. I like the way that
Yeah, everything
ties
ties
together.
in.
But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Very fun. All right. So one more fun thing I want to talk about, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up for the day. But
Sure.
you said one of the coolest literary things that you've done was getting a book list review for your Eclipse. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. I was trying to, do as much as I could to promote Eclipse without, paying a ton of money for it.
Hmm.
And I just, I submitted it to Booklist directly. I know you can go through some back weight for indie authors is what they recommend, but I was like, nah, I'm just gonna submit it. And I mean, it got picked up, and I got a Booklist review for it, which they only publish reviews that are, for that they would recommend.
Nice.
Um, the benefit of getting a book list review is that it goes into their publication, which goes out to libraries. So libraries use that as the basis for which books they're going to order.
Wow.
So I got quite a few hard copy sales of Eclipse because of that review. Like, and it was
Nice.
awesome to see. And I can, just see my book in different libraries throughout the US and Canada
That's
because of
rad.
that, that I can attribute to that is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it was also one of those, as authors, we often have imposter syndrome about our work, and we never quite know. All right, I know I've got good reviews, but getting a publication like that rarely picks up indie authors to pick it up, publish it. That was really validating for me. So that was really one of the kind of the coolest things for me as an indie
That's super
author
cool.
to get.
I feel like you're
Yeah.
gonna have to submit Bartender Between Worlds. I feel like that could be like a library hit too.
Yeah, I tried. The problem with the submission is you have to submit it. I think it's 4 months before publication.
Oh, okay.
That
Oh, all
that
right.
passed 2 weeks ago, and it doesn't have to be a finished product, but it just wasn't to the point that I was comfortable submitting it there.
Yeah.
So I did miss the deadline. I'll have to make sure that when the next one comes out that I get it. But unfortunately, you need a 4 month lead time on getting it to them. But
4 months
it's
for
okay.
you? That's like two other books that you're gonna write in that amount of time.
I know, right? Yeah, that was, like I've had a lot of people question why there's such a lot, like, because I mean, I did my cover reveal last week. I'm doing these interviews through May. I'm doing a lot of build up towards a July release already in May. And one thing I learned from Eclipse and was reiterated to me when I didn't have that lead time for Chimera and Resurgence was that you need to get this on people's radar before you need to get a book on people's radar well in advance of release. It did so much more for me doing that with Eclipse than any of my other books, where it's kind of like, here's what's coming next month, and just putting it out there. So I've really been trying
Yeah.
to do a big lead up time to get those touch points with people and get it on people's radars.
Well, and you said that it's already available for pre-order,
It
right?
is, yes.
And I have it pulled up on my screen. I can see the Kickstarter. We can save the Kickstarter so that you'll be
Yep.
notified when it's started and get that special edition. I dropped that link into the chat. So
Awesome. Thank you.
what are you waiting for? Go, guys. Go. Go. Go.
Thank you for that,
Well,
Nicholas. I appreciate it.
yeah, of course. No, my pleasure. I think we're going to wrap it up there, Herman. This has been an absolute
Awesome.
pleasure talking with you.
Yeah, it's
Where
been
can people
great
find
chatting
and
with you.
follow you online?
Easiest place to go is hermansteuernagel.com. If you don't know how to spell it, Nicholas has got it on the screen here. Instagram is a great place to follow me. Herman Steuernagel Writes, I believe, is my handle there. And that's probably the best place. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on TikTok. You can find me on Twitter at H_Steuernagel. And yeah, follow me at all the
Nice.
places. Yeah, my website is the easiest place because it has all of my links from there. So
And greatest podcast in the multiverse. You can find wherever you're listening to podcasts.
Exactly. You can find it on YouTube, on podcasts. It should be just about everywhere.
Who's like your last like 2 guests and your next one coming up, if you remember offhand?
My last 2 guests. I just released Rob Lee.
Okay.
His book Pathfinder.
Oh,
It was a
yeah,
great
yeah.
interview. Check that out. Yeah.
Nice.
The episode before that was
I think you had Brian Wilson on fairly recently. Can't remember if that was
yeah, he was recent. That wasn't my last. That was about a month.
Was it Amber?
Or so ago, but Brian Wilson. Amber Toro was on a few weeks ago.
Okay.
I'm forgetting who was in between.
Hmm.
And that's
Did you
just
guess
yeah. That's
This
okay.
happened.
Starzy Davies is no, that's in 2 weeks. This next week is oh man. I forget who's coming up this week. I haven't gotten to that episode yet in my editing process. So sorry. Check it out.
No worries.
It'll
That's
come
all
up.
good. That's all good.
I think it's AJ Pagan, I think, is my next guest. He wrote
That's
a
cool.
futuristic military dystopian book called The Executions. So that was a cool interview as well. So
Nice.
check that out.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah, I've had some incredible guests. Like so many awesome people have come on, and yeah, I've a lot more coming up. So do check it out. Some cozy authors coming on as well in the near future.
Oh, nice. Yeah, go check out Herman's show. It's good fun. And again, thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging out in the chat.
I appreciate you having me here. Thank you so much, and thanks to everybody who showed up and listened along.
Yep, Josh has got to run, but he says he's going to check out your Kickstarter. So
thank you so much, Josh.
Everyone needs to go check out the Kickstarter. Thank you, everyone. And if no one's told you today, you're an absolute legend.